Okay, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, people of all races, colors, and creeds, welcome back to the greatest show on earth, the Friday edition of the Greg Anthony Show. There's no better place to be because we're going to get right down to the bottom of what is going on in America. We got an insanity going on here that is of the biblical proportions. Yeah, that's what somebody just emailed me and said, you know, Greg, the whole world's gone insane. It's biblical. And I go, okay, tell me. And so now I've got to read to you a 875-page email. I can't do it. But anyway, he got to the point and he said this. He said, we feel incredibly betrayed. Hey, feels like me, Greg Anthony here. And let me tell you something. Today, I want to tell you... I got a great interview because I want to get back to where I was 15 to 20 years ago. And that was doing show after show, trying to uncover the real threads between the Vatican, the Jesuits, and the American government, as well as governments all over the world. So now that we've gone to hell in a handbasket, and America is down the tubes, as I like to say, even though, you know, I spent the whole day yesterday looking for a tube. Everything's going down the tubes. You know, people are going down the tubes. Listen what's happening in the world. People are incredibly betrayed. Biblical proportions. The world is going to end. Okay. And everything's going down the tubes. But I have not found one tube. The truth may shock you. We're going to digital currency. Who cares? We're not going to have any money anyway. So what are you worried about, digital currency? Good. Let's figure out a way to hack all of those elite accounts like they do to us. I think if you took like $100 out of all the elite that are controlling the world, and it's $100 from everybody that does business with the Vatican, you'd be a millionaire overnight. Yes. And then I get another one, a video, Planet Lockdown. Then I get another one, a new Declaration of Independence for our country. Twitter rejects pleas to remove child porn from the platform because it didn't violate policies. Oh, really? I just got a message yesterday that my show called, I said this, I said the Duke of Dementia is now in control of Chinese United States of America. And all I did in the show, I put on the first 24 minutes on YouTube and then sent it to Twitter, and then I was censored saying that I violated their medical policies. What the hell? I wrote a political article, but you can get child porn on there anytime you want. Huh. Something's really gone wrong here in America, and we're going to figure it out. Now, I said I wanted to go back to the basics. Oh, one story I got to tell you that really is interesting. Coney on yesterday. I called him last night, and I said, Luigi, what kind of show are you running here? You're letting all of our great military people sleep on the marble floors in the Capitol. And he said, yes, that's a show of power, that the military is under the control of the communists. I said, yeah, it's a good twist, because everybody was a little ticked off at that. And then, now, in your second episode of this great Capitol chaos scene, I said to him, they were kicked out immediately and put into a garage because the elite authority did not want them in their house. It's their house. They put them in a garage. There's 5,000 troops in a garage. They're all ticked off saying, what the heck are you doing? We feel betrayed. And there was only 2 bathrooms for 5,000 people. I say go pee on Nancy Pelosi's desk, and Chuck Schumer, and Mitch McConnell, and all of them, you know. And take down, I asked Luigi, I said, could you please take down, he said, I can't. We're going into fascism in the show. It's kind of like we had a Hunger Games inaugural. And I said, yeah. Did you get a call from the director of the Hunger Games, Luigi? He said, no. I said, you will, because you stole his show. I mean, it looked like the Hunger Games out there. You know, there was nobody there, military. They were dressed like, you know, emperors. And then the leader of the free lockdown world couldn't get a sentence out. I mean, what the heck's going on, Luigi? He said, well, it's all part of the show. I said, you did a good job, but you're going to get a call from those Hunger Games people saying, you can't steal our show. But anyway, so the military's stuck outside in a garage. They're kicked out of the Capitol building. And then Biden, I asked him about this. I said, what was the scene? What was the purpose of the scene when Biden came by in his motorcade? Why did they have a parade if there were no people there? He said, that's to show that we are in charge and that you can't go outside because we're going to have a big, huge COVID-21 fiasco going on. I said, okay, everybody's waiting with bated breath for the show to continue with COVID-21. And so the Biden's ticked off because the military turned their back on him when he drove by. Well, of course. I mean, if you kick somebody out into a garage, what do you think you're going to do? I did the same thing to my dad for a couple days when I came home drunk one day. I was 16 years old and wanted to try out Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. He kicked me down the stairs, made me sleep in the garage, and he said if next morning I woke up, I had a hangover you couldn't believe. And he said he put a bottle of scotch, and my dad didn't drink. It's interesting. So I never trusted him. No, I trusted my good old dad. But anyway, he put a bottle of whiskey on the table and said, now you drink with me. And I looked at it. I almost threw up. And so I never came home that drunk ever again. But I did turn my back on him for 2 days. So what do they expect? So here we go. What else is going on? A win for the United States District Court. Really? Oh, they blocked an Obamacare mandate. That means forcing doctors to perform transgender surgery on your dime. Now, wait a minute. Who paid for Michelle Obama's surgery? Or Michael Obama? I want to know that. We already had a transgender in the White House, and they're doing this to our leaders? Come on, this is not fair. You judges, my goodness. And every American needs to know about Operation Trust. Okay, don't even bother with that one. I looked at it. But my thoughts were, the more I wake up, the world has changed so much in my lifetime, and I wanted to, I don't know why there's so many podcasts, there's so many journalists out there, and I'm going, why do they want to do this? and then people said to me, well, Greg, you are a journalist. I said, yeah, but the only reason I did it, there wasn't the internet. There was nothing. I didn't know how to do anything else. So I just did it, and I got paid for it. And I told people I would never write a story unless I get paid. And I know all these people out there are asking for donations, and it's kind of like journalism has turned into a big church, At least it's the only place you can get any kind of information, because the other guys that get paid actually are lying. Telling you untruths, the falsities. And that's why I got out of it, because I worked in the mainstream media for a number of years until I got smart or got dumb. But anyway, I don't know why anybody wants to join this profession, but we seem to have like thousands, millions of journalists all over the country, podcast after podcast after podcast, and I'm going, boy, I'll tell you something. And here I am, still talking, bumping my gums, shooting, talking to you, going in one ear, out the other ear. And my excuse is really, I don't know how to do anything else. My dad used to say, you don't know the difference between a hammer and a screwdriver. And I said, you want to bet? I do. This little piece of metal here with the prongs on the end and a little butt face is a hammer. And this straight thing that you can actually turn little things. And he'd go, what are those things you're turning? I said, bolts. He said, no, they're nuts. So I said, I said, nuts and bolts? Okay, I can figure that one out. So I definitely, if I couldn't do that, I could never go into brain surgery or be a doctor, because I don't like the sight of blood. So I started going, what can I do? I looked under a hood of a car and I go, boy, I'll tell you, those mechanics are really smart. I can't do that. I got to take my car to a mechanic. Then I did about everything else. The only thing I was really good at, I could dive. I was a scuba diver. I enjoyed it. I should have been an underwater explorer for treasure, but I didn't. Took the wrong turn, became a journalist. Then I figured, well, now that I quit journalism, what the hell am I going to do? And everybody's going, who the hell cares? Will you get on? The world is going to hell in a handbasket. and you're worried about, your second profession. We don't want to hear about it. I said, you know something? Yes, you do, because isn't it fun just to forget about this insanity that we're living under? More lockdowns, Biden going, we're masked for 100 days. So, Joe, I'm not going to put a mask. The only time I'll put a mask on is when I come and try to rob your house. And then the CIA is going to come, the FBI is going to say, there's a guy who wants to, I wouldn't even step foot near that guy in Delaware. I've never been in Delaware. Don't plan ever to visit. In fact, I'm not going to that occult Washington, D.C. anymore, unless I start a company, which I wanted to start long ago, and that was the travel agency that would go around the country showing you the truth about all of your buildings and all the occult symbols like obelisks. And the one I like the most is the fascist symbols behind the House of Representatives on each side of the podium, where Crazy Nancy now stands. Boy, I tell you, we got a bunch of quacks running this country, and a bunch of quacks in the CDC, as well as Fauci, and Dr. Dracula Fauci, as I call him. And I said that on the first day. But here we go. I'm doing a show, and my intent and purpose was to talk about the Jesuits in a serious manner. And I'm going to do that today because I got a great interview with an old friend that I just talked to yesterday. Had a really nice conversation, and it took me back like 10 to 15 years when I was out there trying to tell people this is going to happen. I don't know. It could be, China attacking, the northwest coast and the east coast with military troops, or they're going to devise some method to turn this country into Chinese, Russia, United States of America, and they're doing it. And the people behind it, or some of the brains behind it, are right over there at Georgetown University, the Jesuits in the Vatican. And now you're seeing it. I mean, look what's going on in the Vatican. Pedophilia rampant. That's nothing. Another huge financial scandal. The Pope is in hiding, or he was. He isn't doing anything. I remember he first came into office, and he said, I'm going to clean up the bank. And I said, yeah, right. I was there during the biggest bank scandal in the world, and nothing has changed. That was back, with P2 Lodge, and all the priests were being outed by the French and the Italian newspapers as members of the Masonic Lodge and secret societies. And you know what? The other pope gets killed, and then they have this big scandal. Banking presidents are being hung under the Blackfriars Bridge in London, and the cardinal at head of the bank, Cardinal Marcinkus from my hometown, Chicago, was indicted for bank fraud. And then they paid off the Italian government, and he'd been investigated for the murder of a guy by the name of Roberto Calvi, the president of the Bank of Ambrosiano in Rome. Huge, huge scandal. These guys are crooks from the beginning to the end, and they're worse now. So I've been trying to get that out. So I talked to my friend the other day, and we did a nice interview that I am going to play. And in the second, probably start it here. No, why don't I do this? Because I got like 12 minutes here. Why don't I start it in the next half hour, and we'll play that interview in the second half hour. And I'll finish up rambling on here. And I'm sure I could think of some stupidity to talk about. Okay, so what I'm going to do in the second half hour is get to some serious stuff regarding the Jesuits. And my guest has been a researcher for years on this. I mean, he's really a wealth of information, always has been. And he was a former military man, an intelligence officer for over 20 years in the military. And he has learned that the Vatican-led Jesuit New World Order is true. And there's a lot of facts over the centuries and even today that show you that. So I asked him about another friend, and his name was a former Catholic priest named Richard Bennett. Now, Richard Bennett has a website right now called Berrien Beacon, okay? And he's no longer with us. Richard passed away a couple of years ago. And I had the great fortune to interview him numerous times years ago. And we talked about why he left the Catholic Church, why he understood the political intrigue, the Jesuits to a T. And I asked him, point blank, I said, Richard, you know this story inside and out. You spent 20 years as a Catholic priest. And we went through why he left, the insanity, why Catholicism isn't Christianity. And I said, am I on the right track? You've seen what I do. I mean, I learned about the Vatican when I was a journalist in Rome. I'm by no means a biblical scholar. But am I on the right track here? Are these guys really as dangerous as I say, or as researchers have said for the last 500 years? And he said, more so than you even think. And so I knew I was on the right track. And there's so many other reasons why I knew that. And most of them were basically because of personal experiences. Of course, research helps. But when you have personal experiences where you're being marginalized, you're being basically contacted by the very enemy and told, get out of this stuff and join us and be a good entertainer. When you're really actually living it, and you're getting the message that either lay off or you're going to end up in poverty central. I knew I was on the right track, and so that even gave me more impetus to keep going, because I think if I didn't have the personal experiences of living in Rome, of actually being marginalized by these people in more than one way than just having my stuff censored, I would have quit a long time ago and just joined them. I mean, why not? Make $20 million a year to lie like Hannity on the air or Rush Limbaugh. Now, they tell a lot of things that sound good, but they got to be smart enough to know that both Trump and Biden, like all presidents for the last let's just, I don't want to get into the 1800s, but even since Kennedy, when he was killed, we all know that they work together, and not to get this idea now from Limbaugh and Hannity that there's a hope if you follow the Trumpian message. It's crazy, because they put him there for this very exact reason. We're going to hell in a handbasket. And everybody's going, he was such a great president. Yeah, he was great at really pulling the wool over your eyes. So you're not going to get anywhere following him. You got to understand that they work together. Yes, simply work together. And once you get that, you got a chance of understanding who the Vatican and the Jesuits are. Now, I'm not saying they're the only people involved in this takeover, the rulers of evil, but they're very, very important, and they're very, very smart, and they're very, very deceptive. And if they can, if the Vatican can convince millions of people that Mother Mary sits in a palm tree and then collect millions of dollars and ruin hundreds of lives, thousands of lives, when they bilk money out of these people. And I've done stories about a couple really Catholic businessmen that have gotten their lives ruined by the Jesuits for this very exact reason, these fake Mother Mary apparitions. They can do anything. Well, look what they've done. They've created a fake illness. You think you have a cough and you're going to die, and nobody's going outside. The businesses are closing. And that's why I say the Jesuits and their minions, and almost, let's just use 180 countries around the world, will get you coming or going. Now they want a worldwide genocide, just to make life bloody interesting, as the Brits would say, right? Keep up on the COVID lethal jab right here, on this show. You can go to my website at greganthonysjournal.wordpress.com. And next week I'm going to put up, so I was talking about Richard Bennett, and Richard passed away. Really, he was a great guy, and I'm so fortunate to have interviewed him regarding the Jesuits in the Vatican and political intrigue worldwide. But his website is still there, and two gentlemen have taken over admirably with his work. And I'm going to put a couple of their articles up because they have gone in depth on the Jesuit connections to Dr. Anthony Fauci and Redfield, who's the top guy in the CDC. And when you see this, you'll start understanding what I mean, the education, where they came from, who they are, why they're following this insane path, why they've contradicted themselves medically so many times, and 5,000, 10,000 doctors around the world have pointed it out, but they know nothing, And story after story shows you that if you try to go against these guys because of their money, power, wealth, and their control, they'll get you, coming or going. So I'm gonna put a few of those articles up on my website so you see the real connections, maybe even paraphrase some of them next week, as well as trying to get one of the people that have taken over and we're good friends with Richard Bennett on the show. But later today, in the second half hour, I'm going to have my friend on, and we're going to talk about the Vatican Jesuit-led New World Order and things you should know before making a decision to do whatever you're going to do. For example, half the country wants to impeach this guy already. And there's already a website called Impeach Joe Biden, but where's that going to get us? Nowhere. Who are you going to get? Another one of them. You know, it's like killing one cockroach, and then they never die. They come back, and there'll be another cockroach in as president. So, I mean, that sounds great, but again, it's all talk. So, the really understanding this, you got two choices. You can understand where this comes from, try to live with it, or change it. And the way to change it is not through rebellion, killing people, civil war, which they want you to do because you'll lose. But it's by knowing who they are, breaking that curse so that you don't listen to their orders and you don't feed the beast financially or spiritually or anything. And once you do that, boy, they're on their way out. And then, of course, there's always secession. I like that idea. You know, I said, I left America because I'm sick of it. And I'll come back once we have a constitution in at least half the country. It'd be nice. We can do trading with the globalist United States of China in New York. And I'd like to somehow put New York on the other coast, so we don't have to, have them on both sides of us, But anyway, that'd be impossible. But anyway, so they take over. Why give them New York? Why don't we just take New York? Give them the West Coast, It's pretty. I'm going to miss going to see the trees in Northern California. But anyway, sacrifices you have to make for freedom, right? And that's apparently what all the people have done. They've basically compromised their life away. And I do it here every time, too, because before I can even broadcast, I have to read to you the, Pledge of Allegiance to the Mask, etc., etc. Now, on my website, there's a couple good articles sent to me regarding the barrage of new countries, airlines to adopt vaccine passports, no travel, no nothing without that lethal COVID genocidal injection. And I said, well, if you're going to get sick and die, why do you how are you going to get to Hawaii on an airplane anyway? We're going to have to take my boat there. Then we can express the First Amendment. Yeah. Like I said, I do it all the time. I drink a bottle of scotch. I put the story in there that Twitter and Facebook are going to, and YouTube are going to censor. Throw it in a bottle, cap it tightly, put it in the ocean, and 500 years from now, somebody will read it. So you say you don't have a First Amendment? You sure do. At least they think that's a First Amendment. Okay, more on the Jesuits when I come back, and I promise you you'll enjoy it because it takes me back a whole number of years when I used to spend a lot of time researching and talking about them, but it used to go in one ear and out the other, so many people, but I kept going anyway. So anyway, back, let's see, how much time we got here? 33 seconds. Huh, isn't that something? That's fortuitous. That means that somehow I'm going to communicate with the occult, because you realize, I did a show on the importance of the number 33. 33,000 emails by Clinton? Why not 34,000? You don't think I'm on to them? Back in 3 minutes and 33 seconds for all you occultists on the Greg Anthony Show.